hyperinflation of superior segment of lower lobe interposing between mediastinum and collapsed upper lobe. The questions: what are the direct signs of collapse? What are the indirect signs of collapse? Like that, they may ask. These are the signs of direct signs and indirect signs of collapse. So this, my intention is how in ASCII session, how they will ask questions, the session, how it will be, like that only. So me priority is not teach about how to read the X-ray carefully and not like that. So it's a problem-based learning. So how they will ask question and how we have to prepare, like that. They may ask anything about it and anything related to it. They just show a X-ray and they ask the diagnosis. Then they go for treatment session also. So like that. So be prepared. My best for the exam week students. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, sir. There is a universal proverb which goes by what the mind does not know, the eyes cannot see. So this holds true in every chest X-ray interpretation. So the SAR has given us a wonderful lecture and has made us realize the importance of chest X-ray once again. Now, I would like to invite the next speaker, Dr. Yuvarajan, Associate Professor, Department of Pulmonary Medicine, Sri Manakula Vinayagar Medical College and Research. Sir has been a speaker of par excellence, and his recent talk at European Respiratory Society has garnered a lot of attention. Now, Sir will help us in interpretation of CT scan. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Good afternoon, one and all. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Anubhava Madam and the organizing team for inviting me to give a talk on this interpretation of CT images. So as far as the CT thorax is concerned, I feel that it is one of the most important investigation for confirming the diagnosis in most of the clinical scenarios. But the problem is that, like, many people are not, well versed with the very good interpretation of CT. And some of us rely on radiologist report also, and I feel that sometimes it may not work. And I feel that all the pulmonologists should know the basics of CT images, and that will help them to diagnose the clinical scenario very well. As a postgraduates, as a final year postgraduates, and as people who are going to appear for the exam, there are some basic interpretation skills that you should acquire before reading a CT. So in this talk for another 20 minutes, I will just take a tour of almost all the CT images very fastly. And before going to the abnormal CT images, the most important thing is that you should know the normal one first before finding out the abnormality. So let's begin this session on CT images. As you know, CT is nothing but, it's an X-ray only. CT is based on the precise measurement of attenuation of the thinly collimated X-ray beam. As you see that it's a round-like structure. It's a scanner is there. The subject is here. You could see the beam of X-ray is there. There are multiple detectors over around the patient, around the patient, and these detectors will give a signal to the computer and it will pick the image. So actually, what we are seeing, we are seeing the attenuation. We are seeing the reduction in the intensity of beam of the X-ray that is captured with the detectors, and it is transferred as a signal to the computer. It occurs due to the scattering and absorption of X-ray photons by tissue. It is denoted by Hounsfield HU units. Very important, because when you see the lesion in CT, always you should tell that whether it is high attenuation, low attenuation, and all. So that can be better appreciated with the Hounsfield units. As you know that here, Water is around 0, bone it's around 1000, air is around -1000. So these are the different types of CT scan that we can. So as you start from here, X-ray is a single detector. In a standard CT also, you just use a single detector. This was actually older version. So where it takes a lot of time. The patient has to hold it for a lot of time to take a lot of details from the lung. So it's very difficult because most of the patients will have symptoms. They have dyspnea. They can't hold the breath. So nowadays, then after that, evolution was spiral CT was there. In that also, there is a single detector per area. There are different single detectors are there that will give a better resolution. Now we are into era of multi-slice CT where there are multiple rows of detectors. It can take single at a very short period of time, give a very good image. So what is this HRCT? So usually ask HRCT to, for better relation of interstitium and also for, the better relation of bronchiectasis on certain clinical situations. So it's performed using a conventional CT scanner only. The imaging parameters are chosen to maximize the spatial resolution, takes widely spaced thin sections, IV contrast are not required for HRCT. The technique is unsuitable for assessment of soft tissue and blood vessels. Here you could see the clear difference between the plain CT and the HRCT, high resolution CT scan. You could see here more of lung parenchyma, and you could see you are not seeing the much details on the vasculature, much details on the soft on the opacity. What you are seeing here, the same image you could see you could get a better details of the image in HRCT in certain situations. So as I already described, that CT number, that is Hounsfield units, is also very important. This is very important for reporting. When you are seeing a lesion in the CT, this is very important. Normally air is will have around -1000 of HU. Normal lung is around 700 to 900, and fat is around -100. Water is around 0. Most soft tissues 20 to 60, and blood clot is +100, and bone is +1000. Actually, it's very simple. Attenuation is that I will tell you in the form of colors. Attenuation is that dark, brighter one. So brighter one, those it looks like like white and all these things, gray and all this thing. So that will be having good attenuation. Whereas when you see as fat that is -100 and all, it will be like a darker in color. It will be like a black in color. So based on this, color, based on this thing, you can just tell the Hounsfield units. So these are the different sections we'll ask. Usually, this is a CT scan, like it shows usually a mediastinal window, lung window, and bone window. Here you could see the mediastinal window. Here the lung shadow appears so black, and the aim of this mediastinal window is to concentrate only on the mediastinum and also sometimes in the pleura. So basically, mediastinal window looked like this, and lung window, you could see the lung image. Whereas, here it is so darker in the lung image, you think that by that we can assess the lung window. And the bone window here, that the same like a mediastinal window, where you could better delineate the bony shadows in this image, so that you can assess any fractures, you can assess any bone lesions, you can assess any soft tissue eroding along with the bone erosions. All these things can be assessed with the bone windows. So let's start with the mediastinal window. What is the anatomical landmark of the mediastinal window? Is aortic arch. Here, this is the mediastinal window where you could see the both the side lung, you could see the arch of aorta, you could see the SVC, you could see the trachea, right and left lung, antesternum and posterior vertebra. And here, what you are seeing here, that's the landmark of mediastinal window. You could see this is the arch of aorta, and aorta is the first landmark of mediastinal window. And just above the aorta, we have the branches, arch of aorta, we have the branches, 3 major vessels. You could see here the left common carotid artery. This is the brachiocephalic trunk. This is the left subclavian artery. And once again, just above cuts, you could see the right and left brachiocephalic vein. The one that is just immediately behind the sternum, that is in the 2R, that is upper paratracheal region. What we see is the innominate vein. So this is the most important structure that you should know, is that arch of aorta, that here you could see the SVC. Here you could see the trachea and both the lungs. So here, once again, when you take a lower cuts, you could see the arch of aorta divided into ascending aorta, descending aorta. You could see the SVC. You could see the trachea branching into right and left main bronchus. At the same time, ascending aorta, arch of aorta divides into ascending and descending aorta, and you could see the pulmonary trunk. And this is the right pulmonary artery. This is the right pulmonary artery. So, and the heart window, and you could see the right atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle. This is the descending aorta, and you could see here, this is the opening in the diaphragm. Okay, so up to which level you have to take the scan? Like you could see, this is the adrenal gland. So why I just marked this adrenal gland? You could see you could see that's a lambda shaped structure. It's adrenal gland. Why it is important? Because as a pulmonologist, like we should know that whether any adrenomegaly is there or not, because that is one of the criteria that the metastasis and all you just see for a bronchogenic carcinoma. This is the area that you should focus. This is the adrenal gland. Up to that level, we will take a cut. So after the mediastinal window, you should know what are the normal structures that we could expect in a lung window. So here trachea is the landmark. So you could see in the lung window, this is the trachea. This is the in this you can see the apical segment and anteroposterior segment. All these things can be seen in the upper lobe. You could see this is actually localization of the lesion. When you see any lesion, you can see that anything above the carina, usually the upper lobe. You see that this is actually a trachea. The carina has not reached. So this is most of the lung structure. What you are seeing is the upper lobe. Here you could see the anterior segment. When you draw an imaginary line, just almost like 40% above anteriorly, you could see the anterior segment. This is apico-posterior and posterior segment. Here anterior and apico-posterior segment of the left lung. And this is actually a imaginary way. The more better way to localization is that like you can trace the trachea and you could see the image in the scanner room, not in the film that what we are getting, because in the film you won't see the continuous images. You should see in the scanner. You should see that branching of the trachea and how it is branching from the carina, how it is branching to the lobar bronchi and segmental bronchi. By tracing the bronchi only, you could identify what are the different segments are there. That would be more easy. But even if it is not there also, you can guess based on this. So anything above the carina, whatever you are seeing is the upper lobe. So here you could see the mass lesion is in the right upper lobe. You could see a mass lesion seen in the left upper lobe. And at the level of carina, you see that the carina, the branch right and left main bronchus. At the level of carina, if you separate these two things, then anteriorly separate, if you put an imaginary line at the level of carina, anteriorly what you see is the anterior segment of the upper lobe on the right side, anterior segment of the upper lobe on the left side. And posteriorly, what you see is a superior segment of the lower lobe and superior segment of the left lower lobe and right lower lobe correspondingly. And here you could see you could see a mass lesion that is almost seen in the anterior segment of the upper lobe. And at the level of just below the level of carina, what you see is that if you just divide into anterior 1/3 and posterior 2/3, what you are seeing along the heart borders, very simple, along the heart borders, you could see the lung. What you are seeing along the heart borders is the middle lobe on the right side, and the left side it is a lingula. And once again, the posterior 2/3, you can just divide. Most of the times it will be the lower lobe, and the lower lobe, the first part will be anterior segment, and the second part will be a lateral and medial segment, and the third part will be a posterior segment. Okay, so in this, what you see as this is the mediastinal window. So mediastinal window, because lung is not seen, you could see very clearly see the soft tissue, bone structure, and also in the mediastinum. Actually, it is a non-contrast view because you could not see the contrast here. This is the pulmonary trunk along with the right pulmonary artery and left pulmonary artery. What you are seeing here, the left main bronchus. Here is the ascending aorta. Here is the descending aorta, and there are some nodes there. Here also you could see there is some. You could see there's a hatch of aorta. There is a descending aorta. There's a SVC. So when you know the basics of this, basics of normal anatomy, then you can easily identify what is abnormal in the CT. Okay, before interpreting the CT, as you get all the things like lung window, mediastinal window, bony window. So these are the things that you should concentrate in lung window. So what you are seeing, what is the appearance and pattern, where is the location, what is the distribution, what are the additional findings you are seeing. So based on the appearance, only 4 different patterns you could see. Either it is increased attenuation, that is more brighter image, or decreased attenuation, that is a darker image, or linear or lacy opacities, or nodules, what you are seeing. These are the different 4 patterns that you see in any patient with a CT of different pulmonary diseases. First, we'll see increased attenuation as the ground glass opacity. What are these ground glass? As you know, as the name indicates, that is ground glass is nothing but it's a glassy appearance. It is opacity which is a glassy. It is not so dense, and it's a glass. It's a mirror image, so that you could see the structure that is behind what you are there. So you could see there is some opacity, but basically I could see very clearly the vasculatures. So that's why it is called a ground glass opacity. It's an increased attenuation, but not completely obscuring the vessels. It may be physiological or it may be mostly a pathological. The acute causes, what you see most commonly is a pulmonary edema. So if it is mostly in the perialar location, mostly in the central region, you could think of pulmonary edema if it is with the cardiomegaly. And sometimes in case of pulmonary hemorrhage and diffuse cellular hemorrhage also, initial phases you could see like this. In later phases, the lesions becomes more dense and more organized. And in case of pneumonia, typically in case of viral pneumonias and atypical pneumonia, you will see the patch areas of ground glass opacities. And there are a number of causes of ground glass opacities are there, but I'm just telling the most important one that you should not miss. Some of the chronic causes of ground glass opacity. Here, you could see the classical thing. Here, there is an increased opacity. Along with that increased opacity, I could see the structure beyond the opacity. Along with that, you could see very clearly the interlobular septal thickening. So it is like a dried leaf appearance. The classically what you see as a crazy paving appearance. It is nothing but the mixture of ground glass along with the interlobular interstitial septal thickening. Classically seen in pulmonary proteinosis, but maybe seen in other conditions also. In case of bronchial carcinoma, in case of organized pneumonia, we'll see this type of opacities. And the second most important cause for increased lung attenuation, that is a more brighter image, that's a white image. What you see is a consolidation. It's a homogeneous opacity with complete obscuration of the underlying vasculature. A little or no volume loss will be there, mostly associated with the air bronchogram. Here you could see there is a white shadow is there, and you could see the bronchogram inside. So you could see this bronchogram in the chest X-ray or also in the CT scan. Mostly with a poorly defined margin, usually the poorly defined margin. So sometimes in consolidation, you may have a ground glassing around the lesion. So this is called halo sign, classically seen in case of invasive aspergillosis, but maybe seen in other conditions also. So we have discussed all most of the causes of increased attenuation. Now we will discuss decreased attenuation. Decreased attenuation is darker image. Here you could see these are the normal lung. Here you could see the darker lung, that is a more air trap lung. So darker attenuation is mainly due to the air trapping. It's due to the small airway disease, most commonly seen in COPD, emphysema, and also sometimes in bronchitis, sarcoidosis, particularly with obstructive form of sarcoidosis. And in case of hypersensitive pneumonitis, because small airway disease may be seen in hypersensitive pneumonitis, you may get this air trapping and some forms of vasculitis also. And other decreased attenuation like darker image than this, like is a cystic lung disease, what we see. So different cyst also will produce a decreased attenuation. There are common cystic diseases, usually LCH, SLAM, LIP, and pneumocystis current pneumonia. We could see the different cyst in the lung parenchyma. And other cysts, like commonly what we see is it's a cystic appearance of dilated bronchi, that is a bronchiectasis. Here you could see this is the cylindrical bronchiectasis, the cylindrical appearance along with the nodules. These nodules are distributed along the vasculature, so sometimes it gives a tree bud appearance like that. So here it's a varicose one. You could see the bronchi is dilated and it is erratic margin, and it looks like, like varicosities around the varicose. So this is a varicose variety. Here, this one is a classical cystic variety. It's a bulbous dilatation of the bronchi. That's a cystic bronchiectasis. More of central one, we would think of ABPA. Next, we increased attenuation. We think of reticular opacities. That's nothing but the lacy lines. It's nothing but the thickening of interstitium of the lung parenchyma. It may be this thickening is maybe because of fluid or fibrous tissue or the cells. Here you could see in the right lung anterior aspect, you could see this along the vasculature along the septa. You could see irregularity, that is nodules along with the septal thickening. So it is actually as interstitial septal thickening, and there are some irregularity, that is there are some nodules along the septa. The causes may be, in case of interstitial lung disease, lymphangitis carcinomatosa, edema. So lymphangitis carcinomatosa, you may get two varieties. You may get a smooth variety interstitial thickening, or you may get a nodular interstitial thickening. Sarcoidosis, usually a nodular interstitial thickening will be there. Typically you will have a serrated margin, like you will like all the septa, all the interlobular septa, all these things will have a nodules. It will give an irregular appearance. That will give us a clue that we are dealing with the sarcoidosis. So when you are seeing nodular opacities, the thing is that what exactly you are seeing. So if you see this type of nodule, so until up to 3 centimeter, we can call it as a nodule. Maybe you can tell it as a solitary pulmonary nodule, provided if it is less than 3 centimeter, not surrounded by any area of consolidation, collapse as per the definition. But if the lesion is larger, it's better to use the terminology of mass than nodule. And this nodules, typically this type of lesions are described as nodules. When you are seeing the nodules less than 3 centimeter, then you have to just always relate to the secondary pulmonary lobule. What is the secondary pulmonary lobule? Whether it is centrilobular, whether it is perilymphatic, all these things we'll see in the next slide. Okay, so here when you are seeing the nodules, so we have to differentiate these nodules based on the location. It is centrilobular, perilymphatic, or random. Here, when you see this is a secondary pulmonary lobule, exactly the nodules are located in the center of the lobule, that is called centrilobular. And these are called centrilobular, exactly in the center of the nodules. Here you could see this, the secondary pulmonary lobule anatomy is not maintained and the nodules are randomly distributed. That's why it is called random nodules. And this here, you could see, these are the interlobular septa, this is the visceral pleura, this is secondary pulmonary lobule, and the nodule is exactly located in the center. That's why it is called centrilobular. And third one is perilymphatic nodules. It's along the septa. You see that the nodules along the septa, nodules along the interlobular septa, intralobular septa, and also along the bronchovascular bundle. This we call it as a perilymphatic nodules. Okay, once again, centrilobular nodules, it is in the center of the center of the secondary pulmonary lobule. It is indicative of any bronchiolitis. It is indicative of any endobronchial spread of disease. Maybe infectious, maybe non-infectious. Mostly in infectious disease, what we see in day-to-day practice is endobronchial spread of a pulmonary tuberculosis. And in non-infectious causes, like in case of RBLD and the other bronchiolitis, you will get like this. Here you could see the vasculature here. Along the edges of vasculature, you could see the nodules gives a tree in bud appearance. Okay, so this is once again the reinforcement. You could see these are the secondary pulmonary lobule. These are the bronchioles, and these nodules are exactly in the center of the lobule. That's why it is called centrilobular nodules. These are the septa. When you see this nodules, only nodules, then differential diagnosis will be a bronchiolitis. Whereas if these nodules along with the if it gives like a tree in bud appearance, that is due to the filling of this peripheral that is small airways with the mucoid material, that is seen in case of infectious bronchiolitis, usually in case of tuberculosis. Once again, this is the perilymphatic nodules, as I already described, along the visceral pleura, along the septa, along the bronchovascular bundles. This is the perilymphatic nodules, typically seen in any diseases which can spread through lymphatics. The common disease what we see that spreads through lymphatic is sarcoidosis, tuberculosis, any fungal infections, fungal pneumonias, and also in case of lymphangitis carcinomata, in case of malignancies. So this is actually, you see the peribronchovascular nodules. This is the vascular pedicle. You could see the nodules. You could see the surface of the vascular pedicle. You could see the nodules distributed along the vascular pedicle, along the septa. That's why it is called as perilymphatic nodules. Sometimes the perilymphatic nodules we may get in case of interstitial edema and the resolvent phase. These are the random nodules. Here, the nodules are slightly larger, and the nodules are not maintaining any relationship with the secondary pulmonary lobule, not in the center. So this is usually seen in case of hematogenous spread of any diseases, hematogenous spread of metastasis of malignancies, seen in case of miliary tuberculosis, and also in case of fungal infection also. So based on the distribution also, based on the location of appearance of the lesion, and based on the distribution also, we can come to a conclusion, whether it is upper, lower, or diffuse appearance distribution, or whether it is a more central distribution and peripheral distribution. We can come to a conclusion what disease we are dealing with. So upper lobe predominant disease, you could see Langerhans histiocytosis, sarcoidosis, silicosis, Colococcus pneumoconiosis, TB, cystic fibrosis, and central lobe emphysema. You will have a more upper lobe predominant disease. You could see there's a thin-walled cavitary disease. You could see the thin-walled cavitary disease predominantly seen in the upper lobes. And you could see the difference. You could see the difference here. Also, there is increased lucency, but walls, it's indispensable walls. It is actually maintaining the relation with the secondary pulmonary lobule. Actually, it is a case of, it is a emphysema. It is a centrilobular emphysema, what we are seeing here in this city. The lower lobe predominant disease, usually idiopathic irritational pneumonia. Commonly, what we see is IPF and UIP. In case of asbestosis, in case of organized pneumonia, alveolar hemorrhage, pulmonary edema, usually dependent part. Pulmonary edema, all the lesions are more in the posterior aspect and more in the basal region and compared to the apical region. And also in case of panlobar emphysema, usually the lesions in the lower lobe. Diffuse lung involvement. Usually in all the case of DPLD, diffuse parenchymal lung, this is one of the older terminology what we use for most of the ILDs. So in that situation, you will have a diffuse involvement. So once again, in addition to the lobar predominance, we can divide as a central and peripheral. So sarcoid silicosis and cold locus pneumoconiosis and lymphangitis spread of carcinoma, spread of disease or lymphangitis carcinomatosa and PAP, all these things, disease is predominantly distributed around the center. That is a central location, sparse the peripheries. Okay, here you could see this is the patient with sarcoidosis. You could see the nodules are distributed. There are some nodules which are perilymphatic, some nodules which are random, some nodules which are slightly less dense, that we call it as a ground glassing nodules. Along with that, there are some mediastinal adenopathies are there. Actually, for seeing the mediastinal adenopathy, I already told you, any structure that is related to mediastinum, you have to see the mediastinal window. Anything you want to see in the lung, you just look into the lung window. This, we are focusing on the lung window. Here you could see the septa. The septa is irregular. This is the septa. The septa is irregular and it is studded with lot of nodules. So, and also the vessels also, you could see the lot of nodules along the vessels. This is peribronchovascular nodules along the septal nodules. The differential diagnosis may be a TB or also sarcoidosis. Here, the disease is more in the periphery, not in the center. You could see there is a sparing of the central region. You could see the disease is predominantly seen in the peripheral region. So here you could see the subpleural area of involvement. There are reticular opacity. There are some cystic phases. Some cysts are bizarre, larger coalesces. Some areas there is attempted honeycombing. All these things features more in favor of idiopathic pneumonia, more in favor of probably UIP. So this is ILD, UIP, NSIP, and acute interstitial pneumonia. Hematogenous metastasis and pulmonary embolism, the lesions are usually peripheral, not in the center. Okay, then comes to the mediastinal window. After seeing the lung window, what do you see in the mediastinum? Mediastinal window is mostly what we see is the mediastinal structures. In addition to the vascular structure, other diseased aspects, what you have to see is the nodal stations we have to see. Supraclavicular region, it's a node 1. Superior mediastinal nodes like 2R, it's a right upper paratracheal, 2L, left upper paratracheal, 3A, prevascular, retrotracheal, 4R, 4L, all these nodes has to be assessed and seen in the mediastinal window. And 5 and 6 subaortic parietal nodes has to be seen. Subcarinal nodes, station 7, paraesophageal and pulmonary ligament nodes are seen. Hilar nodes, station 10 and 11, interlobar nodes 10, 11. All these things can be assessed to the mediastinal window. Okay, here with this CT, I'll just explain what is this. So you could see this node, actually there is a node, what you are seeing here is a prevascular. So if you want to assess the mediastinal adenopathy, better to ask for a contrast, because sometimes what happens, the small vessels also looks like a rounded lesion. Sometimes you may miss, you may have a confusion whether it is a node or vessel. So if you just give a contrast, all the vascular structures will take the contrast and just throw a bright white jet like appearance, whereas this node will be a less dense lesions and it won't be taking the contrast fully. So here you could see 3A, that's a prevascular, that is a before the vessel, it is a prevascular node. Here what you are seeing at the level of branching, of trachea into right main bronchus, left main bronchus, and here you see that lower paratracheal, right lower paratracheal, it's a 4R node. You could see the 4R node here, and aortopulmonary node, that is a 4L node what you are seeing here. And here, what you are seeing is station 7, that is subcarinal node. And here, at exactly the hilum, what you are seeing is station 10. So all these nodes actually seen to be seen both for the diagnosis and both for the diagnosis, and that gives a clue for diagnosis. And also both for sampling also we need to assess just before the investigation. So there are some CT images, I think all the PGs should know, that I will discuss now. So this is a typical UIP pattern. What you see in the CT. What is a UIP pattern? This is a typical, that is a 100% confident adjacency pattern of UIP, that is IPF. You could see here, the lesions are more in the peripheral aspect, more in the subpleural aspect. The lesions are heterogeneous. Heterogeneous means the lesion doesn't look similar. It is different, but it is symmetrical. The right and left lesions almost like symmetrical. Lesions pass the central region more in the peripheral region. Actually, it is somewhat more advanced. That's why all this, all these other regions, central regions also involved. You could see here the classical lesion. What you should see in UIP is honeycombing. So when you see honeycombing, any case of fibrotic ILDs, that definitely you can come to a conclusion that you are seeing a UIP pattern. So honeycombing, traction bronchiectasis, all these things, these are bronchiectasis, traction bronchiectasis, honeycombing, all these things you conclude it's a typical UIP pattern. So this is the probable UIP pattern. Here, the same thing what you are seeing here. This is a less extensive disease. Same thing, peripheral area is involved, subpleural area is involved. Posterior aspect is more involved than anterior aspect. And here you could see the reticular opacities are more seen. And I could not see honeycombing here. There is not much of honeycombing here. That's why I could not give a conclusion that this is a classical UIP pattern. But I can tell that this is a. So how to differentiate bronchiectasis and bronchiectasis? Bronchioles is the peripheral one. So here you could see the traction changes, fibrosis along with the dilated bronchi. When you see this to the periphery towards the lung edge, then you can tell it as a bronchiole. There is a traction bronchiectasis along with the honeycombing. So here what you see is a bronchiectasis along with the subpleural reticular opacity, no honeycombing. That's why I term it as a probable UIP pattern. So here what you see is a NSIP pattern. This is other idiopathic interstitial pneumonia, what we see in practice. Here you could see this is a subpleural area, same thing like a UIP. It's a subpleural region involvement and sparing the center, more in the peripheral region. And here the lesions are more of ground glass and air-space opacity than a fibrotic shadows. You could see the reticular opacities. The classical thing, what you see in 20 to 30% case of NSIP, but not in all cases, subpleural sparing, very important. Here the lesion is there, but it left the lung just from the edge. So it is a subpleural sparing. That is classical of NSIP. The same NSIP, what you see in a fibrotic form. This is a fibrotic NSIP. Here it is more of fibrosis. You could see the lesions in here somewhat sparing of periphery is there because of the chronicity, and you could see the traction bronchiectasis, you could see the septal thickening, you could see the denser airspace opacity, you could see the more of traction bronchiectasis and fibrosis and crowding of airways are there. That shows it is a fibrotic NSIP. So when you see a lung cyst, the common cyst what we see in day-to-day practice, it is LCH, it is a LAM, LCH. So how to differentiate LAM and cyst? Very simple. So LAM, actually the cyst, you could see the cyst are uniformly sized, uniformly spaced, bilaterally distributed symmetrically all over the lung fields. It involves the periphery of the lung. That's why in LAM, the incidence of pneumothorax is very common and compared to the LCH. Here, the cyst almost reaches the periphery of the lung, close to the pleura, so that ruptures and can lead to the pneumothorax. And you can see the cyst is actually almost uniformly sized and spaced. There is no nodules, nothing you could see here. And here, the same LAM patient, you could see the pneumothorax along with the cyst, what you are seeing here. The same here cystic lung disease, but here you could see the disease, it is almost also symmetrical. The disease is predominantly involving the upper lobe and sparing the peripheries and costophrenic angles, and the cyst is all irregular thick walled. You could see the nodule along with that. So when you see a cyst which is irregular thick walled along with the nodules, sparing the peripheries, sparing the bases, then you could think of a LCH. And here it's a LAM, it is a LCH. And this is also a cystic lung disease. You see that this cyst all sparsely distended, and you could see the cyst actually abuts the vessel along with that. So the common cystic disease what we see is a LIP. So LIP is seen in Sjogren syndrome. You could see the cysts are not more than 3 centimeter, and it is sparsely spaced. It is sparsely distributed and widely spaced. Sparsely distributed, widely spaced. That is a classical of LIP cyst. And here, once again, this is a cyst of bronchiectasis. This is cystic bronchiectasis along with the air fluid level. The cyst is predominantly in the central location. You should think of ABPA in this case. Once again, the same thing here in the mediastinal window. You see the same patient here in the lung window and mediastinal window. You could see in the lung window there is a denser lesion is there in the just around the middle lobe. You could see it's irregular, a fan-like lesion is there in the then the middle lobe. You could see the same lesion when you see in the mediastinal window. It's non-contrast view. You could see the density. There's an increased density here, which is unlikely in any soft tissue. So this is actually a HAM, that is a hyperattenuation mucus. It is somewhat suggestive of ABPA. When you are dealing with a cystic lung disease or non-cystic lung disease also. If you see a HAM in an appropriate clinical scenario, that is more evident for ABPA. Here, the common disease, what we see in day-to-day practice is cavitary lung disease. You could see a thick-walled cavity along with the nodular opacity, along with attempted tree-in-bed appearance. This is the patient with pulmonary tuberculosis. Here, once again, a common CT that what we see in ICUs, you could see the area of increased attenuation with air bronchogram, nothing but a consolidation. Here, once again, you could see the same thing here, the lung window. You could see the nodules of different nodules, not following any rules. No perilymphatic. It's almost randomly distributed nodules, and the nodules are of different size and shape, and it's a serrated margin. And the same patient, when you see in the mediastinal window, you could see a calcified node with leaving the center. It's XL calcification, and some masses are there. A case of silicosis. These are silicotic nodules along with the mediastinal node classification, calcified mediastinal nodes. Here, once again, a septal nodules along with the bronchostal nodules. We should think of any lesions which spreads by lymphatics, either TB or sarcoid. And here, once again, the mediastinal window, you see that there's a trachea is there, aorta, ascending aorta, descending aorta. The pulmonary trunk is starting here. You could see the widening here. There is a widening of subcoronal region. There's a widening here. There's a node along with that. And in the pleura, when you want to see the pleural effusion, you could always look into the mediastinal window. Here in mediastinal window, what we see here is that there is a right-sided effusion. It's obviously looks a gray color. This is a lung. This is a gray appearance. This is a right-sided effusion is there. Here, along with the effusion, you could see the increased attenuated lesion is there in the close to the parietal pleura. That is a nodule is there. Along with that, you could see here there is a irregular soft tissue mass is there. That is almost like, what structure is there here. Here, this is the ascending aorta, this is descending aorta, this is the carina breaks into right and left main bronchus, this is the esophagus. This structure is abutting the ascending aorta, abutting the pulmonary trunk, and also importantly abutting the superior vena cava. The superior vena cava is located is here. So this lesion is compressing that. So once again, this is a case of malignant pleural effusion. You could see a mediastinal lesion along with the pleural nodule along with the effusion. Here, what you are seeing, it's also a right-sided effusion. The difference between this thing is that it's also gray color, but you could see here it is almost like loculated. It's of not uniform, it's loculated. So it's a multi-loculated collection seen in the right pleural space. Here, once again, what I want to just show is a split pleurus sign. You could see this is actually almost suggestive CT sign for empyema. You could see there are three locules are there. One locule in the posterior aspect, one locule in the anterior aspect, one locule in the mediastinal aspect. You could see the bordering. That's called split pleurus sign, classically seen in case of empyema. And once again, when you see a pneumothorax, you could see here, the lung is collapsed, ICD is seen, pneumothorax is seen in the right pleural space. Along with that pneumothorax, what you are seeing is the air that is seen in the soft tissue. That is seen in the soft tissue in the anterior chest wall, and also near the shoulder, and also shoulder blade, and also the posterior aspect. Very importantly, it also surrounds the descending aorta. So it is a pneumothorax with ICD in situ along with the subcutaneous emphysema and pneumomediastinum. And here what you are seeing is a increased attenuation with some attempted AR bronchogram. That is actually a consolidation, or sometimes you may have in case of trauma. If this is a case of trauma, if you see increased attenuation, you should think of contusion also. Contusion also will look like a consolidation. Actually, pathologically both look similar. It is actually a sodden lung. Okay, either by infection or a trauma, it's a sodden lung. It looks similar, that you have to see. So when you see the low attenuation in consolidation, actually I have not put image. When you see a low attenuation in consolidation, sir, how could you identify low attenuation in consolidation? Is basically in the mediastinal window. If you see this consolidation in the mediastinal window, it looks different. So when you see that as a low attenuation, how to tell the low attenuation? Because you should always compare with the fat plane. So if you see any fat density in the consolidation, think of lipoid pneumonia. Okay. So almost like last, you see these are the different patterns what commonly we see in a malignancy. Here you could see a nodule with surrounding a spiculated margin. It's very classical. It's a solitary nodule, and you could see a surrounding spiculated margin, more suggestive of malignant lesion. Here, once again, this cut is very important. Actually, sometimes what happens, you may miss the exact location lesion. If you want to see the soft tissue, if you want to see the involvement of the lesion, you may ask for this cut, longitudinal cuts. And here you could see a masked lesion in the right upper lobe, that apical region. It abuts the trachea. It also abuts the apical region along with all the vessels, and it erodes the ribs along with that. So basically, it is seen in case of Pancoast tumor. Here you could see this is a mediastinal window. Okay, you could see a soft tissue. That's a huge soft tissue, irregular soft tissue lesion. Actually, it is sitting right between the ascending aorta and descending aorta. Almost like left main bronchus could not be seen. Everything is entangled within the mass, and the pulmonary artery. Normally, we expect here the pulmonary trunk with right and left pulmonary artery, that is also entangled, and the superior vena cava, what you expect here, that is also entangled. So all these things. So it's a mediastinal mass with actually it is a case of small cell carcinoma. So when you see a mediastinal disease more when compared to the lung disease, think of small cell carcinoma, more aggressive mediastinal disease. Most of the times small cell carcinoma present like that. So these are the common cities what we see in ICU. I think this is the last slide, what we see in ICU. The first slide, you could see increased attenuation, that is airspace opacity along with the increased airspace opacity along with the air bronchogram all over the lung fields. Along with that, you will see the patchy area of ground glass opacity, case of ARDS. Here you see there is increased attenuation. What you are seeing here, there is airspace opacity typically distributed along the bronchovascular region, along the bases, along the peripheries. It is any airspace opacity typically distributed along the bronchovascular location, along the bases, along the periphery. You think of organized pneumonia, cryptogenic organized pneumonia. Sometimes you may have a reverse halo sign. Here, once again, important CT, what we see in ICU. Here, what you see is the nodules. The nodules are randomly distributed. Some nodules are close to the center, some nodules are subpleural, and some nodules catches the vessels. There are some attempted feeding vessels. And I think in this cut, it is not very clear, but you could see the attempted, if you see nodules, always you could see the relation with the vessel. So here also you could see the nodule which cavitated. So actually a nodule, a small nodules, multiple nodules in the correct scenario, along with the cavitation, you could think of septic emboli, most often with a staph pneumonia, staphylococcus. So this is once again a case of pulmonary embolism. So in pulmonary embolism, what you have to ask is CTPA. You can ask one question, sir. Like in CT contrast, can we see embolus? Yes, you can see, but actually for peripheral embolus, if you want to see, you need a more generation cuts, more generation of pulmonary vasculature. Always it's better to give more amount of contrast into the patient. So it's better to, it's most needed to ask CTPA. Here you could see this is a pulmonary trunk. It's a right pulmonary artery. It's a left pulmonary artery. You could see here in the right pulmonary artery, you could see a filling defect. That's a pulmonary embolus. Okay, so that's it from my side. Actually, it's very difficult to cover the whole of the CT chest in a single presentation. If any clarification doubts, I'm ready to take. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, sir. In this COVID scenario, CT scan has become the most performed investigation, and this talk had helped us a lot in better understanding. Now let's move on to the next talk. Sleep is a golden chain that binds the health and our bodies together, and it holds true. When this chain is broken, there begins a pathology. Identification of pathology often poses us with diagnostic challenges. Now, to help us out, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Keerthivasan, Head of the Department, Coimbatore Medical College, to teach us on the importance of sleep epoch and its interpretation.